Start.
Thanks, Aditya.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We know it's been a very the last 1.5 years. I think everything has been online, and so to come for one webinar after the other, it could be very taxing. So for all those who are joining us today, thank you very much for giving us your hour, and we hope to make this fruitful for all of us. I am Malvika Fernandez. I am project coordinator of Project Mumbai, and I'm also a counseling psychologist. And we have today with us two other counseling psychologists from Project Mumbai, Tanvi Samrani and Devika Kapoor. The three of us form the mental health team at Project Mumbai. And to just give you an introduction of what Project Mumbai does and also what this webinar will have, and then also we'll try and make it as participative as possible. So guys, Project Mumbai is an NGO that works a lot in the social space. So anything that requires social innovation, social support, empowerment of people, coming together, community work, that's where you'll find Project Mumbai. We've done a lot of work in the space of recycling in terms of environmental projects. If you look at beach cleanups across the city of Mumbai, you will find Project Mumbai one of the top organizations there. Also, if you look at a lot of railway stations, highways, a lot of the infra, if you've seen them being painted, especially in the last 1 year, you may see a small logo there saying Project Mumbai. So our idea is to make the city, and then of course the country and the world, a place that is sensitive to each of us, a place that is livable for all of us and inclusive. Mental health is a very big space in which Project Mumbai works. I think there's very little that's spoken about mental health, and whatever we've heard about mental health in the country, we've heard in the last 1 decade. India has, and I'm told that we are joined by a lot of young people. So thank you, because I hope that in the next 1 hour, you'll get some information, or there'll be some aha moments for some of us. India has one of the worst mental health statistics to show in the world in terms of adolescent and young adult anxiety, depression, suicide. There's enough evidence and research now to show that we don't have mental health systems in place, which is why students in schools, students in colleges, institutions, and young adults in organizations don't have spaces to talk about what they are feeling like. As a country also, actually it's not just India, I think in the entire world, mental health stigma is very huge. We may talk about a physical injury, but we do not talk about not doing okay emotionally or mentally. So many of you who are students joining us may have faced peer pressure, bullying, exam stress, parental challenges, transitions, and we don't talk about it enough. We don't address it, listen, provide help, or allow people to seek help in these areas. So Project Mumbai started in 2019, one of the largest school mental health projects of the country. It's called the Smiling Schools Project. Actually requesting you guys who are joining to please check it out on our website. It's a 5-year-long mental health project in the municipal schools of Mumbai metropolitan region. So we're working right now with about 150 schools in the MCGM, that's Mumbai Municipal Corporation, 150 schools in Thane Municipal Corporation, and in fact tomorrow we are beginning, not tomorrow, sorry, Monday we are beginning with Ulhasnagar Municipal Corporation as well. And in the next 5 years, we plan to reach about 2,000 more municipal corporation schools where mental health is not accessible. Conversations and mental health professionals are not found in municipal corporation spaces. So that's where Tanvi, Devika and I primarily work. that was going on beautifully until, of course, all of us were hit by the pandemic last year. And while the Smiling Schools project continues and continued the whole of last year, we did a lot of other projects. And I'm sure that in our conversations, me, Devika, and we will talk about it. We realized last year that, there's so much of conversations around, people having physical challenges because of the pandemic, people, financial challenges, for example, but very little was being spoken about the mental health challenges. We started having webinars with different age groups, students like yourself, senior citizens, young adults, middle-aged people, very young children as well. And we realized that the need is very, very high. One of the reasons we're talking to you all today is because as young people, we hear a lot of times, you guys say that, physical health, mental health, theek hai na, jab thoda old ho jayenge tab dekh lenge. Right now we are young, we can bear it. And it's not that simple. It takes a toll. And whatever mental health challenges we face at any given point in time, if we don't talk about it, we carry it forward in the years to come and in the generations to come as well. So what we plan today to talk in the webinar is a little bit, I will talk a little bit more about mental health, followed by Devika, who will talk specifically about adolescent and young mental health with respect to the pandemic. And then Tanvi will talk about the coping that, young people have shared with us, that we in therapy, that we in our practice have seen that has worked for a lot of people. So requesting all of you all to also use the Facebook chat to put in your questions, your comments, because we'd like to make this participative. It's not a lecture. We want to have a conversation. So we'd really like to hear from you all as well. I'd like to talk especially about mental health with regards to last year. I think that it's not said enough. It's been such a traumatic year. It has been an exhaustive experience for everyone. It was around this time last year that, we were told 2 weeks of lockdown. And I also know that there were mixed feelings, right? Because some of us felt, yaar, chutti. And some of us were like, oh, what is this lockdown? We started getting flooded. Our WhatsApp, our Instagram was flooded with messages and sometimes rumors about, what the pandemic is, what is the trajectory going to look like. Basically, a time of a lot of uncertainty. And there was a lot of hope in terms of, okay, it might open up in August. It may open up in October. I also know that this Jan, everybody was putting up posts on social media about, oh, it's the new year. And, but look at us, we are in March and it's the conditions. In fact, Mumbai has received its largest number of cases yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So we had all sorts of mental health concerns from citizens across the country, anxiety, depression, a lot of parental pressure at home, especially by student communities, where they said that there are no boundaries of, when do we switch off and switch on from studies to then doing household responsibilities. A lot of people said that, okay, now let's try and get productive because, maybe that's what this is about. Maybe this time can be used to be productive. And it worked for some. And for a lot of people, there were phases of what's going on? What is this productivity? Why aren't people realizing that this is a major transition and this is not normal? Every time we heard the news and people said new normal, we also had a lot of calls coming on our helpline or, in our webinars saying that what new normal? It's extremely anxiety provoking. I have lost a job. I have lost my college days, I have lost human beings. I've lost precious humans in my life. So there's so much that we've gone through last year and continue to go through this year. Even grief, which we don't talk about enough, grief of losing people. Some of us may be privileged to not have lost people in our immediate family, but I think most of us, all of us have heard, somebody losing their life to COVID in the building or in the community or in the chali. And not just people, grief about losing your routine, grief of not being able to do what you could do before, going to the market, going to the bank, meeting your friends physically, hugging, and all of that has taken a toll on so many of us. What I do believe is we need to talk more about this. Project Mumbai started this year a support group for young people such as yourselves. It's called Young Minds, and we meet with different age groups of adolescents and young people to talk about how we can support ourselves and each other. And I think it's so important to now really take mental health so seriously. And it's sad that it's come down to a pandemic to realize, mental health बहुत important है, huh? We should talk about our emotions, because it's ironic, because there's so much that humanity had to go through for us to realize something which is basic, which is mental health, which is so important in terms of holistic health, right? What I want to say is that, not everybody can be a psychologist, right? We're talking today right now. So I'm not going to advise and say, be this way, do this, do that. I think what we need to start with is taking care of ourselves and prioritizing ourselves, saying, नहीं मेरे से नहीं होगा, या हाँ ये मेरे से होगा, इतना ही होगा, or you know what, this is what I can take, this is what I can't take. And doing that in spaces of different systems like families, education spaces, organizations where we are interning or working in, being able to take care of ourselves and trying to, be there for ourselves. And the second thing is, if somebody else is doing that, if your friend, neighbor, family member is talking about their mental health, we may not be great listeners, we may not be great empathizers, but can we just stay and be and try and listen to them? And if nothing, at least not demean their experience or say, "Hat ye to kuch nahi hai," or "What is this?" It could be small things like telling them, "You know what, I know of this helpline. Do you want to talk to somebody?" Or just saying, "You know what, I may not be the best person to help, but you can share. I'm trying to listen, or I'm trying to be there." I think that is something we really need today, and I think we will need now for years and years to come. If there are any questions, even at this point, we'd be happy to take them. We'll wait for 1 minute maybe if there are questions, and then of course I'll hand it over to Devika, who will talk specifically about adolescents and young adults.
I was wondering maybe if I can begin now, and if there are any questions since we've waited. Okay.
Yes,
Malvika, thank you so much for setting the context so beautifully and walking us through how the year has been, and giving us some very important and relevant things to think of, as well as to question. I think that's something which was very important from what you also mentioned. So thanks so much for doing that for us, and for everybody who has just joined in and who is probably not feeling like listening to us also. Maybe please request you to just stay in for a little bit longer, because right now we would be talking about after this beautiful context setting, that what is mental health for adolescents and why is it important to speak of this age group so much. Typically, adolescent is a time frame that starts maybe say since 13 years and can go up to 19, or even some researchers have shown 21 years of age. And I guess most of people who are or who might be attending might fall under this category as well. So we are going to focus on your mental health a little bit, and it becomes important because nobody talks about adolescent mental health, or very few people talk about adolescent mental health, because I always see that sometimes, no, in our culture growing up, there is a lot of invisibilization of pain that happens for young people. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up and I complained of something, I used to always hear, "Are you are too so small, why are you worried about anything?" or "Are aapko abhi se hi pain ho raha hai, you know, you're so little." And that somewhere sent me a message that I was not supposed to feel this thing, that if I'm feeling these things, something is wrong with me. And I internalized this very very harmful idea actually. But then over the course of my education, etc., I figured out that no, you know what, we need to fix this structure that is invalidating my experience, and I don't need fixing, the structure needs fixing. So in this segment, we are just going to validate some of your experiences that you might have as a young adult, and as an adolescent who has lived through the pandemic and is living through the pandemic. Firstly, I just want to recognize everybody's effort that they are just surviving. I think that has become so effortful, because I hear even at our helpline, people talk about how it's so difficult to learn online, how these spaces of safety, such as schools, such as college, such as coaching classes, such as basketball courts, such as canteens, such as playgrounds, and like the tennis court, badminton court, carom, all of those places are taken away from us, and we're just forced to live our life in a screen. And it is a lot actually for people who are just starting out their life, which is you guys, and I'd like to include myself also. We're just starting this space out. And while yes, there is certain sense of familiarity with technology, and I'm speaking to people who are specializing in technology. But while there is a comfort with that, I think there is also a lot of digital burnout that each one of us is going through. Digital burnout is a fancy term for feeling very, very done with everything online. Okay, so it's a fancy term for something very simple. Although it is simple, it is very impactful actually, because digital burnout, and lots of research is showing that how young adults are facing multiple stressors. One is spaces of safety being taken away from them, which were all the social engagement. And I don't think many adolescents like to live at home and, you know, be like, "Oh yes, yes, this is my place." We all sometimes love to go out and be with our friends, and now we are not allowed that, or up until very very recently we were not allowed that. And I know people who might have just started college in their first year and coming to probably your dream college and then not being able to be on campus. I think it's so painful. It's so painful to hear that. And I remember that IIT Bombay was one of the first institutions to suspend offline classes. I think this was early Feb last year. And I know, because like a couple of people that we were even speaking to on the helpline were like, "I don't like this. I want to go to my college. I want to go to I want to go to the hawker outside my college and eat." You know, such simple pleasures are taken away from us. And all of this has such a deep, deep impact on us. And how does it impact us? It impacts our ability to register anything pleasurable, because we are constantly deprived of things. So our body is kicked into survival. And we are like, now we need to, everything became a matter of life and death. Oh, going out, I have think 10 times. Wearing a mask, such an important thing, but it was not our normal. It wasn't, and therefore it seemed difficult. Right now, also, if we wear mask for a prolonged period, I don't like it, but we don't have an option. We have to do that, unfortunately. So, because everything right now is so geared towards survival, so geared towards safety, there is this emotional exhaustion that is setting in, which I'm also going to talk about, because it seems that, especially with young adults, it goes often unnoticed. It gets brushed off as, array, it's, just like teenager mood swings, or, this child is behaving unruly. But it's not that. You, I think the first thing is just recognizing and acknowledging the kind of distress that we are going through. And what might be distress for me may not be distress for another person. That's okay. That's absolutely fine, because some of us, obviously, because when we are new to this language of distress only, we will tend to compare that, oh, my friend is not feeling that way, but I am. But that's okay. We can have varied experiences, and that will be fine. So I just want each one of us to, maybe after this webinar also, if we get time, to just sit back and think how much you have gone through emotionally. We've almost forgotten how it feels like to, meet and hug a person that we love, and there is so much distance in every friendship and in every relationship. And it seems so difficult to bridge that gap also right now. So I'm just going to, maybe in this portion, highlight certain changes that we have went through also. And at the same time, what I really, sometimes it hits me is that resilience is a concept that is developed by certain psychologists, and resilience means that the ability to bounce back, right, to life that previously was. But I think ye jo adolescent is that the age group now, their resilience is taken so much for granted, and that no, it will happen, दे विल लर्न. अरे आजकल के बच्चों को तो सब आता है कंप्यूटर पे, वो तो पूरा दिन लैपटॉप पे ही रहते, तो उनके लिए तो कुछ चेंज नहीं हुआ. आई हैव हर्ड दिस, पेरेंट्स से दिस, अनफॉर्चुनेटली टीचर्स से दिस, अनफॉर्चुनेटली, एंड नेगेट एंड इनविजिबलाइज देयर पेन. एंड आई एम लाइक, यस, तो उनको आता होगा, बट इट वाज नॉट अ लाइफ एंड डेथ मैटर फॉर देम. दे डिड इट एज अ सोर्स ऑफ प्लेजर. नाउ दैट इज आल्सो बीइंग टेकन अवे फ्रॉम देम. So those are certain things that I feel that when we are talking about adolescent mental health, first, there is no space of safety anymore, unfortunately. Or even when there is, it's limited and it's not optional. It becomes again a part of survival. So therefore, we just want to take some time and recognize the kind of changes that we have gone through, and maybe sit and cry if it feels like it. I think that's okay. I think in later in the webinar, we will talk about the importance of addressing emotions and how one can do that. But it's okay to mourn. I think most of us come from that narrative also, that, array, we must stay strong and we must stay positive. While that is one part of it, but being strong and being positive all the time is also not healthy, actually. So it's okay. We can rest. We can allow ourselves to disintegrate, to cry. That's okay. And at the same time, I was also thinking that today my colleague pointed something very important, saying that adolescents also missed certain very important milestones. Malvika, I think you were telling that they missed certain important milestones, such as first day of college, or, graduation ceremonies. Or, I remember this whole space of batch of 2020 being so pissed that we are not being able to attend our convocation. And I know those are losses that perhaps we will recover. It's not that we will not recover. Recovery happens. Human beings are resilient, but it's also something that is a loss. I think let's just acknowledge that each one of us is going through multiple losses. And by that, can we be much more kinder to our needs? Can we be much more kinder towards people around us also? Because who knows who's going through what? And while I understand that some of us may not have the responsibility of, say, bringing home money or etc., just because we are still in college, and some of us may not be employed, which is okay. It doesn't mean that your problems don't mean anything. Because I think Right now, the narrative has shifted so much towards, as long as you're alive, you should be grateful. Arey Baba, yes, I'm grateful, but that does not mean I can be eternally grateful for anything. I think that is also there. And if you're grateful, you're great. I mean, good for you. But also, if you notice people around you who may not be feeling that grateful, it's okay for them to feel slightly sad. And like Malvika also said, that you can refer them certain spaces and allow them to just take care of their mental health, because mental health is not a concept that is out there, it's here. Everybody will have mental health. Everybody, and everybody will have bad mental health days. All of us will have it, which is a proof that it is normal, that it is natural to have bad mental health days. And at the same time, I would just like to also maybe conclude saying that right now we will have to re-look at building spaces of safety for ourselves, which means we will have to relook at how is it that we cope up with this distress. Earlier spaces are not available to us. What can we do that will make ourselves feel better? Try thinking about that. Take a book, or even on your laptop, just make a list of things that help you deal with bad days. That could be as simple as re-watching the episode that I have seen million times. Do it, re-watch it, it's okay. As long as it's helping you, it's good. Or listening to music, eating something good. I think that's been such a great coping for me. Eating something and just making a list, because what might work for my friend may not work for me. What may work for me may not work for my mom or my dad, or whoever, may not work for them. Therefore, I'm just going to encourage each one of us to be much, much more introspective in this time, and being very gentle with your introspection, because no institute will teach introspection. I think this is something that we will have to teach ourselves, and it will help us only in the longer run. So if a takeaway from this segment can be, is just that be much more gentle and be introspective a little bit. So I think on that note, we will maybe say pause for like a minute and check for any questions from Malvika's segment as well as my segment, since we transitioned fairly quickly. And if not, I think I can invite Tanvi to take the baton from here. Thank you, everybody.
Guys, please ask questions, because I think we'll also get to know if we are giving you information that's making sense. And also, uh, don't think any question is silly. पूछो, please. थोड़ा डाउट है तो भी पूछो.
I think I've missed out very often because I have a question in my mind and then I say, no, it's not, it's too stupid. So I don't want to ask this question. And then someone else maybe asks the question and then everyone's like, Arey, wow, what a question. Let's discuss this for 15 minutes. And, thankfully my question is answered, but then, you have that self-doubt or a doubt in that question. And I've started without introducing myself, but I think I'll just start, and if the questions come, we can take them as they come. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here today, spending an hour of your time with us. It really means a lot to us. And I would also really like to thank my colleagues Malvika and Devika for really beautifully summarizing and explaining concepts that are very dear to my heart and dear to theirs also, for sure. But at the same time, very, very important. And I think definitely need to be addressed in today's day. And I think I took a lot of points that I want to sort of elaborate on from their segments. And one thing that I want to start with is Devika mentioning digital burnout. And whilst this is not necessarily part of digital burnout, I think it's a physical manifestation. My eyes began to hurt from the increased screen time. And these glasses, I don't have a number, but these glasses are those Blu-ray. I don't know what they're called. They're called something. Basically, they don't allow some harmful thing from going into my eyes and making my head and my eyes hurt. Sorry for not having the right term, but I bought it and it's actually useful. And a lot of my friends make fun of me, but yeah, I'm just going to continue to wear them because they work for me. And I think that that's a consequence of being online and being on my laptop for, maybe 3 or 4 times as much as I used to be before COVID, because everything, my work, um, studying, entertainment, recreation, everything is this device or maybe the television. Everything is through a screen. And um, sometimes when I just think about it, it gets really exhausting because um, I'm not one of those people who needs to be out every day in nature doing all these cool things. I really love being at home. But, even for a person who loves being at home, there are too many days where I'm wondering when can I really step out? When can I go out? When can I travel? When can I see my friends who are in different cities, different countries? And things are changing, things are getting better, but then we are coming back to this track of Mumbai's highest cases. Cases are increasing. Till the end of March, we have a sort of lockdown or a lot of restrictions again. So there is that uncertainty. There is that constant up and down all the time. We're just wondering um, how it can be affecting us. And I think we just have one comment here. I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a quick second to put that up. And yeah, all right. So essentially what I was saying earlier also was that this constant fluctuation that we experience in our moods and because of the stuff that is going on around us. And like Malvika and Devika very accurately said, um, it's not normal what we are going through at all. Can you imagine that in the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 years, we have not come across a situation where the world has shut down? And the world shutting down for one day or 1 hour or one weekend also would be, all right, I'm not sure if my voice is, Malvika and Devika, can you hear me?
I think now your voice is better. It was slightly low.
Is it better? All right. So sorry about that. I'll just continue. And if anytime my voice sort of becomes low or something, I just request someone to let me know. But as I was saying earlier, the situation that we're not going through is not normal at all. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. And I really think that Malvika and Devika helped us acknowledge that this is a new situation. This is an extremely bizarre and unfamiliar situation. And how does our body respond in those situations, right? So let's take a sort of short but quick biology lesson. All right. So there is something called neuroception, and neuroception is the idea or the concept that our body and our neural pathways are constantly assessing whether the situation we are in is safe or it's dangerous, right? And what we want to do is survive. So our instinct is to get out of any situation that we assess as being dangerous. But the key here is that we are not consciously aware that our body is assessing this. So we might feel very safe in a situation, but our physiological response to our situation could indicate that there is a lot of stress around us. And when that happens, there are a lot of physiological things in our body that happen, such as increased heart rate, sweating, our mouth goes dry, we stop feeling hungry, indigestion, just the feeling of a similar feeling that is characterized also by anxiety, right? So in a lot of cases, when we are uncertain of our future, uncertain of kal kya hoga, will I have a job? I'm getting out of one of the most premier institutions in India. I don't have proper closure for those people who are stepping out this year or were stepping out last year. don't have proper closure in terms of all the ceremonies and all the graduation possibly. And then what after that? Future education, if that's a scene, are you going for higher education abroad? Are the doors shut to universities? When are they going to open? How does getting a job look like now? And this was probably even more severe last year. Maybe now things are opening up, but then there is still, our bodies have not coped with the difference possibly, right? From 2018 or 2019, where everything was as we knew it. We'd grown up in that state. So we knew 100% ki kya hoga, almost, compared to now. And we really need to acknowledge that because what we're going through is not normal, it's really okay to have these feelings. And it's really, really okay to behave in ways that are slightly different from ways we might have responded or reacted pre-lockdown, pre-COVID. And once we do that, maybe it becomes easier to understand that we need things to cope with the situation. Once we realize that there is something that we are going through, that's when we can say, okay, we need something to cope with, right? Because otherwise we'll say, why do I have to cope? And like Devika very correctly said, a lot of us feel, oh, my problems are not big enough. There are people who are dying on the street. They're homeless. They don't have money. They don't have their next meal in front of them. Everything is shut because of COVID. Why am I crying? I'm sitting in my house with my parents. Food is coming to the table. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. Yeah. Okay. So I think this is part of being at home, right? And I'm currently the only one at home. So personal life and professional life always getting muddled up. But coming back. So I was saying that, when we often think that we have so much privilege, we might feel guilty. We might feel guilty for feeling distressed. Anytime we experience any sort of angst, we might say, how dare we do that? Like, why? We're not in a position to do that. There are other people with bigger problems. How dare I come to the table and say, even I have problems, right? But why should we invalidate our problems? That's a question, particularly in this time, that I would ask, because we are also going through something that's equally unfamiliar. And can we just address that through gentle coping strategies? And Devika also told us about some coping strategies and some that she likes more than others, like eating a good meal. Sometimes eating a good meal is just so heartening, right? Eating something you really, really enjoy, maybe making it or going out and getting a meal if possible, if you feel that's something that you can do safely enough. Or maybe just talking to a friend, sitting and having chai in the morning. Like that's my peace time. I wake up and then I have a cup of chai in the morning and I'm looking out at my plants. And that itself just sets the tone for the day. The rest of the day, I feel like, okay, I got that done. So when I'm having that, I can take some time to plan my day, take some time to just enjoy the few minutes of maybe not sweltering heat that Mumbai offers, before it gets really hot. So these small things, and even in between the workday, if I find that I'm feeling very stressed about something, if I have a 5-minute break, can I watch something that makes me laugh? That's something I go to personally, right? And I think in the beginning of the lockdown, there were a lot of people putting pictures of like bread, they started baking bread, or they've started cooking some fancy items and, feeding their family, and everyone loves the food. And, like home chefs and home bakers started sort of being born in COVID times. But I feel that my initial thought to that was, oh, maybe I can also do it. And, I did try, and some things came out well. Some things I was just so exhausted. It was hot in the kitchen and I'm working for 2-3 hours trying to make something. I'm not even a great cook. And like, it would just turn out to be something really bad and I would feel terrible about it. But my desire to do all of that came from watching my friends put up incredible stuff, right? So what I wanted to bring out with this point is that maybe that is not my coping strategy. sitting and cooking and working for 2-3 hours in a boiling kitchen is not something that makes me happy. Eating for sure, but then why can't I just like make someone else make it or get it from outside or something? Why do I have to do it? Why do I feel that someone else gets joy from this? So that is the reason I will also get joy from this. So we can apply this to anything in particular. I'm not sure what you guys see on your feed or you guys see around you that you might feel that, oh, acha, mujhe bhi ye karna chahiye, so I will feel happy. It could be anything. I would like Devika encouraged everyone, can we really just sit down and make a small list of things that we've always been doing? We've always been using coping strategies, I believe. And that's not something that we probably acknowledge very consciously. We all sit and do things that give us energy in the day, right? It could be talking to your parents, especially people who are away from home, talking to your family, talking to your closest friends, meeting, going to your favorite spot on campus. If any of you are on campus, is going to your favorite spot on campus, playing with the hostel dogs. Who doesn't love that, right? Who doesn't love that? Because there's such a ray of sunshine in this time. So can we just spend a few minutes doing that very consciously? This is going to give me strength, because we did that earlier and we got strength, but we never knew it. So can we do it very consciously now? And one coping strategy I want to talk about in particular, okay, and for everyone, okay, and I think that here the question of gender also comes in the way, but what I want to talk to you about is crying, right? Crying as a coping strategy. And I was thinking about why crying might be therapeutic, and I realized that why is it so hard to do? Because sometimes when we cry, most often, at the end, we feel better. We might, very likely we feel better. Then why is it so hard to admit that crying helps or crying can be good? It's probably because ever since we are little, everyone around us, all the adults around us, maybe they didn't want to hurt us or, give us negative conditioning in a way, but they say, nahi, rona band kar do, sab theek ho jayega, or they say, you should not cry. If you cry, I'll hit you. Don't say a word. Don't cry. They want to probably, they think that will make us stronger. But if we are laughing as children, does anyone say, why are you laughing? Maybe other than in school, when we are giggling in school and the teachers say, stop laughing, stop giggling. But I think that's also quite stupid. Please giggle and cry when you want to. But at the same time, if we keep growing up with these messages around us that crying is a bad thing, crying makes us weak, crying is for girls, men don't cry, boys don't cry. And I don't think we ever thought about it as children. That just grew stronger and stronger, and we started acting on it more and more in line with those messages as we grow up, right? So can we just revisit that idea and say that crying is just a natural expression of how we are feeling? It's nothing more. It's not weak. It's not strong. It's nothing. Like we laugh, like we feel angry, like we feel happy, like we feel jealous, like we feel sad. We're crying as an expression of sadness, possibly. And sometimes we cry with joy, and that's also not questioned. But crying with sadness in particular is questioned, right? Crying with joy is, I don't think it's questioned as much as crying with sadness. And for those people who cannot really face their tears or face the fact that they're crying, maybe you all can start in the shower, I saw this line in one of my favorite shows, BoJack Horseman, introduced to me by Devika, where the lead actor BoJack, the character says, I really can't face my tears, so I'm just going to go cry in the shower. And I realized that that's a great way to start for people who are not used to crying, right? Why not do that? And see how it feels. In fact, you all can laugh at me behind your own screens, but I schedule crying sessions. If I know that I have a window of 20 minutes tonight, I'll say, okay, I can use that time to cry. And I go in and I sob. And it works for me. It really helps me feel good. So why is that something that we look down upon? Anything that makes us feel good, right? But at the same time, whilst we're talking about coping strategies being a great thing, sometimes doing them in excess might, not really work with us, not work in our favor. Such as, say, if I use exercising as a coping strategy, for a lot of people, sports, physical activity, everyone's registering for Avhan. So I assume all of you love some sort of physical activity or the other. And, it really sort of makes sense that physical activity gives us energy. Physical activity also uplifts our mood because endorphins or like mood, sort of mood or happiness hormones are sort of released, and uplifting, energizing hormones are released. But at the same time, of course, you're going to feel negative effects if you overdo it, right? If I go to the gym or I run or I play a sport for too long every day, I'm going to feel exhausted. I'm going to feel like I'm not able to have enough energy to do rest of the activities in my day, which are possibly equally important. I'm feeling great when I'm doing the exercise, but then later I'm not able to really function in other things. And we might injure ourselves, we might overdo something that is not great for us. So, like any coping mechanism, I think we really need to see that we're doing it consistently, but not in excess. And it really would help if we could gather a list of our own coping mechanisms, which are not sort of something that we've seen on social media and picked from there, but really seen what works for us and taken it from, that very personal experience of coping. So this is something that we've all been doing around us. And Project Mumbai, we've launched another initiative called Emotion Express. We had one last year, which on World Mental Health Day 2020, we released this book of coping resources with entries from people all over India. So some people send us a list of songs that they listen to during this time that make them feel happy. Some people send us pictures of art that they have made. So much creativity has come out, right? So much creativity, mandalas or pictures that their kids have made, sitting and spending time with their children, cooking some dishes, writing a story, writing experiences of their day that make them happy. So really listening to and looking at pictures of evidence that there is very, tangible coping happening all around us. Very beautiful evidence. And we released that on World Mental Health Day last year. We've also come up with Emotion Express 2 this year. And I really would invite everyone here, because I know that there's like a truckload or multiple truckloads of creativity to all the people I'm speaking to. So it really doesn't have to be anything that Picasso would make or anything like that. We're talking about, is this better? Okay. How about now?
Yeah. Not okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I don't know. So I also have a very ancient laptop, I was telling my colleagues, and I'm really trying to work with it as much as I can, trying to take it to the end of its life and then get a new laptop. So please bear with me. I hope you all didn't miss out on too much. All I was saying was that we can really do with your contributions for Emotion Express 2, which is basically a storehouse of coping strategies by everyone around us, very real things. We don't want to ask you to buy 10,000 rupees ka, massager or something like that. We want to know what you guys are doing. It could be anything that works for you. So you can always head over to projectmumbai.org and look at the first coping resource toolbook that we brought out, created by the community for the community. It's called Emotion Express. And now we have Emotion Express 2 going. So if you check out our Instagram, we're constantly uploading stories of our contributors and their contributions. So we would really love if you guys could also contribute to that. And I think that this is all I had to say for today. If there is anything that you would like to say or ask at this point, not just me, but Devika, Malvika as well, we're really welcoming your comments. And we would love, love, love to hear from you, because we are behind a Zoom screen. We can't really see, anything that is going on Facebook, to be honest. So it would really be lovely if you guys could let us know what parts got through to you. If anything was offensive or anything was like, what the hell are you saying, Tanvi? You can say that as well. So feel free. As we wait for questions, Devi, I was wondering, would you like to talk a little bit about Samvad? Talk about our helpline and let everyone know.
Yes, Tanvi, thank you. I think I should have, and it just slipped out of my mind. So thank you so much for reminding me. So Samvad essentially is a helpline dedicated for emotional concerns. It's a helpline that runs for 7 days a week for 12 hours a day. And it starts from 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. in the night. And you can essentially call there. Your confidentiality will be maintained, and you can speak with very trained therapists there. Anybody who receives your call will be a trained therapist, and it is absolutely free of cost. You can, talk about your concerns or whatever you are facing there, and be rest assured that you will at least be heard, if not anything else. And I really, really urge you to use that helpline as a place where you can talk about your concerns without feeling judged. That is the motive of the helpline. And like I mentioned, so I see that Tanvi has already given the number, so you can note down the number and call Samvad if you feel that is something, that's a place that you would like to access. Or up until now, we've actually received more than 10,000 calls, and people have reached out and they have spoken about their concerns and hopefully felt help. So that is one space also that you can access. Thanks a lot.
Maybe we can wait for another minute or so, and if there aren't any questions, we could probably call it a day. But we would really like to hear from you if anyone is listening, or if no one asks questions.
I think Tanvi is stuck, or is it my computer? I think.
No, I think that's Tanvi, unfortunately. But I think what she was about to say is that if none of us have questions here, maybe what we can do is also, wait for another, say, a minute. Otherwise, we can say call it a day and wrap this up.
Also, guys, if you can't think of questions right now, or you'll think of something much later, then you all can write to us at info@projectmumbai.org, or check out our Facebook or Insta page. You all can DM us, and we'd be happy to answer, help out in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, guys. I was talking about my laptop, and I think it decided to give in on me. So I had to sign in through my phone. And just to say that if no one's asking questions, we're just going to believe that we've done a great job of talking about the mental fundamentals. And and then hopefully we hear from you. If you guys have any questions, like Malvika said, you can always write to us.
I think it's safe to say that we can maybe wrap up.
Yeah, for sure. Okay
then.
Thank you everyone.
Yeah. We'll hopefully connect maybe on our Insta, Facebook pages or email.
Yes.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you.